The Rocky Mountains of North America, home to some of the most beautiful, pristine forests in the world. But the shades of burnt gold and reds aren't the changing tones of autumn. They're dead and dying trees.
We're looking at tree mortality over a scale of tens of millions of hectares in the last decade alone.
In fact, right across the globe, there are reports of trees dying in mass numbers. From Europe, from Africa, even right across the Amazon, and right here in Australia. Summer provided an ideal feeding ground. This big eucalypt took hundreds of years to grow and died in just a couple of weeks. In fact, nearly every tree you see here died suddenly and at the same time.
Last summer was the hottest, driest period on record, and we had some 122 days with no rain. We had weeks with over 42 degrees, and we started to see large areas just collapsing and dying. So we took an aeroplane up, and it was amazing to see the extent of the yellowing and purpling and the numbers of trees that were dead. In the Perth Hills, we lost approximately 20,000 hectares of trees. Again, we don't fully understand what's driving these declines, but in some areas we're losing 100% of the trees.
Despite many different ailments, there is one obvious common stressor that could explain why so many trees are dying. They are facing higher temperatures with less water. The southwest of Western Australia has lost 15% of its rainfall in the past few decades. Average temperatures have increased by just over 0.5 degrees Celsius. Heat waves have become longer, more frequent, and more intense.
We haven't seen such scale of damage in the last 50, 60 years, probably in recorded history.
These are some of, if not the toughest trees I've ever seen. Now we're seeing conditions that are going outside their ability to cope.
US forest ecologist Dr. Craig Allen sees the situation in WA as typical of the trends being observed elsewhere in the world. He's documented over 100 examples of large-scale tree deaths in the past 25 years.
We see all around the world in places where there have been droughts, particularly droughts and heat waves, trigger mass waves of mortality. No major forest type is immune.
Across the western US, tree death rates have more than doubled in the past few decades.
Where I work in northern New Mexico, we see everything from grasses and shrubs to trees dying.
Die-off events are quick and dramatic.
There may be insects and fungal pests that emerge at that point in time, but underlying it is the physiological stress on the trees that compromises their defenses. You could think of it actually sort of like HIV in humans. HIV doesn't directly kill people, but by compromising our immune systems, it makes us vulnerable to secondary viruses and other things that can kill us. It's similar in trees.
The effect climate change may have on our forests is a huge concern. But an even greater worry, how will dying trees affect the climate? In 2005, the heart of the world's biggest rainforest suffered a drought so hot and severe, it turned the Amazon jungle from a carbon sink to a carbon source. A second, once-in-a-century drought happened 5 years later.
So what we're seeing in these forest die-off events around the world are trees passing the tipping point of stress, the thresholds of mortality. Unfortunately, we don't know very much about these thresholds at this point. What's most alarming is that these die-off events may be just the tip of the iceberg. We know that warming temperatures exacerbate tree mortality, and the climate predictions are that the world is going to get much warmer soon. So we may be just at the very front edge of what could be wholesale mortality of the world's forests, the forests that we know and care about today.
Now, here was a special survey conducted much earlier than usual by the U.S. Forest Service from the air over the Southern California Sierra Ranges. In it, more than 4.1 million acres were surveyed, covering western portions of Stanislaus Sierra, Sequoia National Forest, Yosemite, Sequoia Kings Canyon, and the Tehachapi Range, nearby private lands as well. It's covering quite an extensive area. In general, they found mortality was quite severe in many pines species, especially in ponderosa and piñons at lower elevations and more southern areas. Along the foothills, the mortality was often widespread and severe, especially in ponderosa, but also gray pine and likely blue and live oak. They concluded it is unknown if the oaks that were mapped were truly dead or had died back defoliated due to the drought. And as you can see from these pictures, the map, it is quite extensive. And if we go down to here, the mortality severity of the number of trees per acre in the greater 15 is the largest recorded in red. And you can see that all down the entire mountain ranges, mass dead mortality. Their summary of their survey was as follows, quote, the U.S. Forest Service Forest Health Protection Program conducted special early season aerial surveys of Southern California and the Southern Sierras in April to get a preliminary assessment of forest conditions in some of the most severely drought-impacted areas of the state. Approximately 12.5 million dead trees were identified, 4 times that of all California tree die-off in 2014, 400% increase in 1 year. In 2014, an estimated 3.3 million trees died throughout the state, nearly double 2013 mortality rate. So we went from 200% 2 years ago to an increase of 400% just last year. As the trees go, we go. Few give thought to the fact that trees give off oxygen and take in the CO2 that the anthropogenic activities over the past few decades have caused the massive greenhouse effects that are occurring now. Trees are life. They give us life. Those who argue and will continue to argue that it is a drought that is causing the trees to die are not dealing with reality. They are covering up the truth. Here we see the Navarro River, where trees are dying right on the water-supplied river. Additionally, in the area where I live in Mendocino County, we are seeing orchards that once were fruitful and plentiful, and within a matter of just a few weeks to a couple months, have turned and died in large areas and growing. On my property alone, I'm seeing cherry trees that were once healthy and alive in March, now dead. They were setting buds in March, and now they are dying like someone turned off their DNA and will produce no more fruit. Additionally, we have perfectly healthy walnut trees that are dying, and apple trees, and fig trees, and walnut trees. In my garden, my cucumbers this year, the straight 8s that usually turn off lush green and are delicious, grow straight to yellow. Again, it's the UVBs causing them to yellow. My strawberry patches are dying, and they get plenty of water. That is not the problem. Is it possible that the powers that be have been planning this for a long time and have seen it coming? Could they be that sick? Why would somebody like Bill Gates and company spend tens of millions of dollars to build a seed vault to hide away all the heirloom seeds on the entire earth? In Mendocino, we have many forests. It is going to be tragic to watch it occur over the next few months and years. Here we see beautiful spruces dead and dying. I close with comments from Dane Wigington, one of my true heroes, and I'm glad to call him a friend. He is fighting the good fight, which we all need to join now. If the trees die, we die. Whole ecosystems are collapsing all over the globe, and our rapidly dying trees are the most visible harbinger of what is unfolding. Few seem to notice the die-off until it's pointed out to them, but once recognized, what can be seen is alarming. On a geological timescale, the human race has decimated planet Earth in the blink of an eye. Though there are countless sources of anthropogenic damage to our planet, climate engineering stands out above all the rest combined. The list of environmentally devastating factors directly relating to the ongoing geoengineering programs is very long. Trees are succumbing to this onslaught, and the human race will follow if our species does not completely alter its current trajectory. global engineering is completely disrupting the hydrological cycle, destroying the ozone layer, and contaminating the entire surface of the planet with highly toxic, bioavailable, heavy metals and chemicals. Massive levels of radio frequency transmissions directly related to climate engineering are yet another layer of destruction which is radically affecting the trees, us, and the biosphere as a whole. It is imperative to wake the masses to our common plight. All those who are already awake are needed to assist with the ongoing critically important campaign to awaken others. Arm yourself with critical data and pass it on. Make every day count in this battle. Amen.
Just say die. Now that would be pessimistic. In your mind, we can walk across water. Please don't cry. It's just a prayer for the dying. I just don't know what's got into me. Been crossing that bridge with lessons I've learned. Playing the fire and not getting burned. I may not know what you're going through, but time is the space between me and you. There is a light through that window. Hold on, say yes, while people say no. Life carries on. Oh, it goes on. I'm crossing that bridge with lessons I've learned. I'm playing with fire and not getting burned. I may not know what you're going through, but time is the space between me and you. There is a light through that window. Hold on, say yes, while people say no. 'Cause life carries on. It goes on. It goes on. Life carries on. When nothing else matters. When nothing else matters. I just don't know what's got into me. It's just a prayer for the dying.